Hi there. I have another classic arch book to read to you. This one's called Grandfather's Story. And this arch book is based on Luke chapter 2, 8 through 20, and Mark 16, verses 1 through 20. Grandfather Simeon sat all alone by the side of his house where the grass hadn't grown. He looked at the ground and kicked at a stone. He was feeling so lonely, he said with a moan, "I think I would cry if I lifted my head. I've heard that the man they call Jesus is dead." Simeon's neighbor, his nickname was Dan, was a clinkering, clattering pan-maker man who clinkered and clattered wherever he ran. "Simeon, smile! What's wrong with you, man?" But Grandfather Simeon failed to smile. He said, as he looked at a bug for a while, "I think I would cry if I lifted my head. I've heard the man they call Jesus is dead." Now, no one had ever seen Simeon sad, so Dan knew for certain that something was bad. So he clinkered and clattered on over to Joel, the baker he knew who was baking a roll. "There's something the matter with Simeon, friend. Perhaps we can get him to laugh once again." So back to old Simeon both of them ran. Joel came first, and then clinkering Dan. "You should eat something, Simeon," both of them joked. But Simeon never looked up as he spoke. "I think I would cry if I lifted my head. I've heard that the man they call Jesus is dead." "What's the matter, my friend?" squeaked a voice from the lane. "Can anyone tell me what's wrong or explain?" said the voice which belonged to a tailor named Job, who was wearing an oversized fluttering robe. "Is something the matter with Simeon, friends? Perhaps we can get him to laugh once again." Now, Grandfather Simeon usually was the happiest person they would ever see. But today was unusual. That they agreed. As Grandfather Simeon said to the three, "I think I would cry if I lifted my head. I've heard that the man they call Jesus is dead." Then each of them, Joel and Job and then Dan, said to each other, "Hey, let's think up a plan. There's something the matter with Simeon, friends. Perhaps we can get him to laugh once again." But as Joel and Job and then Dan were just thinking, a little round girl with eyelids a-blinking came bouncing to Grandfather Simeon's knee and said, "Grandpa, what bothers you? You can tell me." "Oh, Ruth," answered Simeon, bowing his head. "I'm so glad you came over to see me," he said. "For I think I would cry if I lifted my head. I've heard that the man they call Jesus is dead." "But why," questioned Ruth, "should you worry about this Jesus of whom you know nothing about?" "I will tell you," said Grandpa, "but let's have a walk, so we won't be disturbed while we're having a talk." Kissing her nose and then ruffling her hair, Grandfather Simeon rose from his chair, and taking her hand, he began his own story of how he knew Jesus and why he was sorry, and thought he would cry if he lifted his head because the man they called Jesus was said to be dead. "A long time ago, in the days of my youth, I guess I was older than you are now, Ruth, I was tending my sheep on a long winter's night, when all of a sudden the sky was so bright that I trembled and blubbered because of my fright. I looked into the sky in amazement to see an angel as wondrous and bright as could be, but with peace in his voice and with love in his eye. He said, 'Peace among men and all glory on high.' The angel from heaven announced to us then that the Savior God promised was born to men. To the city of David he told us to go and search for a baby in swaddling clothes, who was placed in a manger, and then we would know we discovered the Savior as God had foretold. Well, I hasten to tell you, we ran to the town, and we searched every building, both upstairs and down, till we spotted the baby, the Savior of all, as the angel had said, in an animal stall. We worship the baby and ask for his name. His mother said Jesus, and he is the same, who was killed on a cross just for healing the lame and for sharing forgiveness in God's holy name. So I think I would cry if I lifted my head. I know that the baby called Jesus is dead. "Oh, Grandpa," said Ruth as she danced at his side, "if you'll give me a 2-minute horseyback ride, then I'll tell you a secret most everyone knows, which will help you smile as nice as a rose. The Jesus you love and adore isn't dead. He's alive. I saw him. There's nothing to dread. Ask Peter or John or Salome instead. Jesus of Bethlehem rose from the dead." "You know something?" Grandfather Simeon smiled. "I heard that he said that the faith of a child would lead us to him as God after all. And he said he would live again. Now I recall." Then Grandfather Simeon started to dance down the road around the trees and some bushes and plants. And he lifted his head and he started to sing, "He's alive! He's alive! He's alive in the spring! All glory to Jesus, my Savior and King." And remembering how he had shouted the truth of the Bethlehem birth to his friends, he and Ruth ran back to the house to 3 of his friends who thought they could make Simeon happy again. He announced with a laugh, "I've lifted my head. The man they called Jesus is no longer dead. He's alive! He's alive! He's alive in the spring! All glory to Jesus, our Savior and King." The end. Well, I hope you enjoyed this classic Arch Book grandfather story, and I hope it is a blessing to you as you think about Christmas and look forward to Easter.